Hey, I'm Elysia Stobbe, your Mortgage Millions mentor, where I help mortgage loan officers make twice the money in half the time. And I'm so excited because today I've got my partner Rocco, and we've been talking about the psychology of sales. So whether you're crushing it or you're not, these are all the fun, interesting thoughts and processes that go on behind the magic of the Mortgage Marketing Master app. And here's Rocco.
Yeah, thanks, Alicia. It's great doing these little trainings here with you. I really enjoy the conversation more than anything, and the stuff that happens below the surface is sometimes the first thing I want to point out today to anybody watching this is that you mentioned something important. Some of you are probably already having a ton of success, and congratulations. Others maybe not where you want to be at yet, and trying to find your way. But I think there's value even for those that are having success to pay attention to this information, because there are things sometimes that we do unconsciously that we don't even realize are winding up giving us our success. And if you can, on a conscious level, identify the things that are working for you subconsciously and just like, wow, I'm already doing that correctly, that just builds your confidence. And at the same time, you can just tinker with it a little bit more. And some of the things that might not be getting you to the next level, because there's always a next level, you'll be able to start to recognize some of that stuff. So that's how I try and approach myself, Elysia, is to just as much as possible do some self-evaluation, because being able to share some information, I'd be lying if I felt like I was the be all, end all, and master of any of this stuff. I'm a student, just like everybody else watching this video, a forever student. So what we wanted to talk about today is the idea, especially in everything that's in the mortgage master marketing app. When you're going through it there, you're going to see there's so much information there that's allowing you to be able to engage in conversations with people and create those relationships, whether it's new customers or referral partners, but primarily being able to I guess crack the seal and engage in conversation. It takes a really important step of value creation. And what I mean by that is I subscribe to I guess not even the theory, but the actual scientific facts that the way that we make decisions is going through a series of micro commitments. And we can kind of explain some of those at a high level. But micro commitments are just steps that we take along the progression of a sale. And it doesn't really matter if we're buying a piece of gum that cost a nickel, or at least when I was growing up, maybe it cost a nickel, or it could be something that is as important as securing a home for a family, or making a decision to entrust a relationship with somebody who's going to be responsible for securing a loan for a family to get into a house. So those micro commitments, again, we could talk about those at a high level, but there's something that has to happen that some people will call it a micro commitment. I don't think so. I think it's a very huge, impactful, mega commitment. And it's actually the hardest one to do. And that is getting the commitment of time from somebody. It's the most important.
Especially now, more than ever.
Right? I mean, the amount of people and messages that compete for our time is insane. And for those of you that are already having success, you might have established some of those relationships where you can gain commitment of time. But if you think back to how you got there, trial by error is probably not the best approach. Like you were saying in 2022, right, Elysia? I mean, I was watching one of the videos that you had before, and you're like, I remember back when I first got started in the mortgage business, was what, just like 6-7 months ago, right? When you first got started.
2 decades this year. Oh my gosh.
And so trial by error has allowed you to be able to formulate a system. But along the way, I think for any of us, when we're getting out there, we make those first steps, and more times than none, at our highest level of anxiety, lowest level of knowledge, we have a tendency to make mistakes, and that's okay. We need to be able to fail our way forward, of course, but at the same time, if you can give yourself some structure, and then you could go back and reflect upon where you did or did not follow that structure that you had for yourself, you're going to improve. I mean, that's just the nature of it. So we got to keep showing up there. But I'd love to hear some of your war stories, Elysia, before we get into the heart of some of this, from one of the biggest mistakes maybe that you made asking for a commitment of time for somebody, whether it was assumptions that you made or just, kind of swinging to, kind of a wild, wild west strategy, or what did you do when you first got started that did not work for you? Maybe it's a good spot to start.
Oh my gosh, there's so much. And what blows me away is like a lot of the teachings out there today haven't changed. And I'm like, that didn't work 20 years ago. It still doesn't work. One of the things my sales manager told me to do when I first got into the mortgage business was to go to the realtor's office and bring them like a candy jar, preferably with our logo, and then, go by every month and fill it up. And it's like, okay, so I can get in the door, but I could have gotten the door with, we got kind of joke in the mortgage industry, rate sheets and donuts, right? Here are my rates, have some donuts, use me. And it's just like, that is so far from just like what really works. I mean, it's great to come in with a smile and a gift. Absolutely. Right. Without a doubt. But that's not really how you're going to get business and build quality relationships, because the realtors that are in the office who are hanging out and eating your donuts means they're not out on appointments with clients showing houses. Right. So it's like, I always go back to, it's the joke. That's great. You're going to get all those minnows, right? You're fishing, but you're not fishing in the right pond. Right.
Yeah, and even
I want the pond with the huge bass and the tarpon and the grouper. Like, I don't. Yeah.
Elysia, I think that if I would say I'm a brand new realtor and I'm just getting my feet wet, or I'm one of the busy ones that's sitting there that day because I just had a meeting, I'm taking a break or whatever the case may be. I'm in the office doing paperwork. But if I would just, my perception of that might be, here comes the girl from the mortgage company, and her job at the mortgage company is to be the professional candy filler upper.
I know, right? Like, it's so silly. So again, it didn't work then, it didn't work now. And now you can't even, during COVID, you couldn't even go into an office. Mm-hmm. And now more than ever, their realtors are working from home. So again, you really have to use the sequence of the micro commitments and adding value.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
Yeah, it's some of the difference between that. Like, I think that what you said, you bring a gift, you smile, and introduce yourself, all that stuff is great, even if you can manage a way to do some of that digitally. I mean, the law of reciprocity is a big deal.
Yes. But
it still is based on the level of somebody being aware of that you actually have a relationship with them. Like the candy thing, I read something that when a waiter or waitress, when they give you your bill, if they give you a little piece of candy, that actually increased their tip rates by like 11% or something like that. They give you 2 pieces of candy, it goes up to like 30%. But think about everything that's happened with the waiter or waitress to get to that point. If the waiter or waitress would have just came in with the piece of candy first and dropped it off, you didn't come there to eat candy, you came there to eat a big meal. And by the time you've eaten the meal, they've probably forgotten as much about that because you established other value with them as your waiter or waitress. So you bring in at the end as a little booster, and you can get that kind of an impact. And then you don't be the candy filler upper anymore. Now you're perceived as somebody who added value and a little token of appreciation for working with somebody and having that opportunity. Okay, enough of that. Let's talk about some science stuff, right? We try and do these talks around psychology and selling, and I was pulling out some information today on a topic that's known as the social exchange theory. And that sounds like some complicated stuff, right? But I'm going to give you a very simple, easy definition that I've written down here. And I think that it'll make sense to everybody right off the bat. And when we're talking about gaining a commitment of time from somebody, this is why it matters so much. So in the world of social economics and human interactions, so the social economic theory affirms that it's ingrained in human relationships. There's a desire to maximize value and minimize cost. So when the cost actually begins to exceed the value, then what happens is the relationship winds up being cut off or minimized over time. And I was actually talking with you a little bit before we hit the record button, and just learning about that, it just reminded me over the years, our relationships evolved. Like, the ride or die friends sometimes that we've had when we were growing up, that you just couldn't imagine a world without them now. It's just that the priorities of who we are wind up changing, and as for them. So even though we could still love those people to death, the reality is that the maximizing value is usually around our immediate community, our network of people. So maybe more time with the family and that sort of thing, because it feels better for us, right? And that's what we're after. So what does all that have to do with being a mortgage loan officer, particularly around maybe developing relationships with the realtors? Elysia, I mean, you obviously, this is something I hear you beat the drum from very frequently, is that you can't just kind of like you talk about, show up with a bag of candy and think the magic's going to happen there. How important is it to maximize value in a relationship with a realtor?
It's the most important thing. If you're not adding value to that realtor, personally and professionally first and foremost, but sometimes personally as well, then they have a million other things to do besides talk to you.
And so
yeah, and it can be all kinds of, market update. It can be consultation. I have realtors that we may not have a deal in process because it could be on one of their listings and we weren't able to get a preferred lender on it. So they'll call me with scenarios. Hey, we had this happen. What do you think this? And of course I'm like, well, should probably call that lender, but my scenario is, ABC. And they're like, okay. So they call me for added value. And of course I give it, because every chance they have, they give me a deal. So, and I would just do it because personally I like them, and professionally we do a lot of business together. But that always has to be first and foremost.
of course.
And the other thing is too, the more you know them, like, what if I'm giving candy to a diabetic? They may or may not ever say anything. And I'm actually like, if I were to find that out, I would never do that. But I would feel like, I mean, a big jerk, right? Or what if you give a closing gift that's wine to somebody who doesn't drink? Like,
Right.
That's not value. That's even the opposite of value, right?
Yeah,
Then
that'll
you're pushing
hinder
the
it.
needle the other way. Now you have to make up for it, right?
So if you're a loan officer and you're watching this right now, and you're wondering, and here's some harsh reality. If you're wondering why you're not getting callbacks, nobody's responding to any of your messages, any of that sort of stuff that makes us feel icky as anything related to sales, it has this social exchange theory, is that we haven't established enough value yet for them to commit to the time. I look at my inbox right here in front of me, and it's got, I don't know, 200 plus messages sitting in there. And I usually will go through and triage and knock out the ones that I know just are not for me. But there are certainly some emails that will show up in my inbox that I'm like, I'm not ready to act on an offer or something that's coming to me today. But I see there's a little bit of value in there, but it just hasn't become a big enough priority for me yet to get to it, right? And I think that we all have things like that in our life. And I think that what stops me from really focusing on some of those ads that come into me is that they're not unique enough to me. Like, I'm interested, but it's not unique enough for me. They haven't defined, because a lot of it's blast marketing that happens out there. And so what needs to happen in this idea of creating a commitment of time that you want to be able to establish is you have to create authentic value. And how does authentic value work? Well, like in your app that you've created, Elysia, it's authentic sharing technology. It's set up and designed to allow you to be authentic. Remember, it never is about automating relationships. It's about augmenting them. But the truth is, ultimately, the buyer is the one who determines the value, not you. And that's where the authenticity of it comes in at. we had a training we did about a month ago when you first put the app out there. And one of the things that we focus on and talk about all the time is in today's world, right? And this is so important, is that we need to make sure that we are problem finders first and then solution finders after. And what happens very often is that people will get stuck into a rut of thinking whatever the main thing is, that maybe it's the Fed moved the rate a little bit, or home values are up or down, or all the things that are in your world, Elysia, that I have just, increments of information about, that we think is going to be impactful to one person. So what the suggestion is, and we've done some of this for you inside the app. Elysia's created some great content that's going to allow you to start to be very specific and go geared towards the right influence that you need to have on people, and showing them problems that are very unique to them. And when you do that, when you create those insights for people, there's enough value to say that not only does that person know what they're talking about and they start automatically gravitating towards your influence, but just as importantly as that, they're saying to themselves, is there's something there for me, like the thing that shows up in the inbox, but when it's personalized. And so this is something that you should be paying attention to. Look, there's only one piece of advice I give you today more than anything else. If it's not the information that is preloaded and ready to share for you, go find something that you can sound the alarm about, that potentially let people know where there's a severe dysfunction, problem, issue, like something that is an acute thing right now that you can solve for somebody, that that you can, and then just present that to them. And that is how you create authentic value. And so getting a commitment from time, there'll still be people that, emotions come into it. On the other side, where somebody might having a bad day or whatever the case may be, are they always going to be responsive? No. Timing matters, of course. And maybe in another talk, we'll talk about how to shift people's emotions quickly and that sort of thing when we do another training in the future, so you can get them to back into a relationship with you, even when they're having a bad day. But for right now, I think we're a little bit off the starting gate with the first couple of trainings that we did here. But this is something to think about, is being that problem finder, sound that alarm, and then present that information to people. And that's better than being a professional candy filler upper, Elysia.
Every day of the week. Every day of the week.
Yeah.
If you help rescue somebody, they always remember that.
Yeah, and it's how you make them feel, right? Like you can tell them, we joke sometimes. I know that you studied martial arts a bit too, and a lot of times in my son's school now, one of the things they always say is they're like, all right, who can demonstrate the best, right? And they're all like, me sir. And then they'll pick one of the instructors, will say, all right, you don't tell me, show me, right? And that's what you want to be able to do. So when you start to tell people, then you have to be able to back it up and show them. And that's where you've got the best in the world with Elysia there to be able to walk you through some of that stuff. So you can be confident that when you're asking for that commitment of time, that if you stay close to what you read in her books, what she trains you either through the app or some of the free content that's out there on social media, that you've got a real way to solidify those relationships for the future. But you got to get it in the door first. And that's asking for a commitment of time. By the way, I said I would mention this as well. There's a lot of different books on influence and sales psychology out there. You fill up a whole library with different stuff that's out there. When it comes to these micro commitments, it's things that we do through a series of, we ask ourselves, peeling back in layers of asking ourselves why. Like the first thing is, why make a change, right? The second thing is why, and this is from a buyer's perspective, not from your perspective as a seller. That's sometimes like we have these sales strategies. We think, oh, we should sell this way. Well, no, what we should do is disclose information, how somebody makes a purchasing decision, right? And the more that you peel that onion layer back, you'll get to it. So why change is the first micro commitment, that as you're presenting and you've gotten past commitment of time, why should they do it now is the second, right? The third one is why your industry solution. And what I mean by that is sometimes people will say, okay, if I'm going to work with somebody in the mortgage, and if I have a problem, well, why don't I just go rent, right? or if you, with the problem that you present, sometimes people are trying to maximize their own value. So don't ever think that your worst competitor is sometimes not another mortgage rep, right? It's another possible solution outside maybe the real estate industry entirely that you don't even know about. So don't think that they're not thinking about that, right? Then
Excellent
once,
point.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that happens all the time. We only, I could tell you war stories, Elysia, of over the years where I didn't lose anything to a competitor. They either tried to fix a problem internally themselves, or they went outside a different industry entirely. And I was like, wow, I didn't see that one coming, right? But once we've gotten past that, the right industry solution, then it's like, well, why you and your company, right? And then once I decide that you're the right person for me to work with to do the change and be in that industry and do it now, then it's like, well, why that particular product or service? In your world, at least, it's why that loan product? Why not do a different type of a loan product? What other interest rates are out there, right? And then the very last one is why spend the money? Now, the good news is if you did everything right up to that point, that should already be resolved. When it comes to actually closing, you closed the whole time if you got those other whys answered along the way, right? So that's just some stuff we can unpack that a little bit further in future trainings around there. Some great guys who put some of that stuff together, and I subscribe to that information quite a bit. And even when it comes to objections, like if you're getting an objection, it's because one of those 6 whys haven't been answered. And so
Absolutely.
whether you're buying a pack of gum or you're purchasing a $500,000 home, we all as human beings make those mental decisions before making a purchase, and we can do it instantly if it's something that we can, doesn't cost us a lot financially. But the truth is that's how we get to the end of making a purchase decision. So that's another deeper conversation for another time. But I said I was going to talk about it here. Today is the hard one. Those 6 are fairly easy when you routinely have that structure for yourself. But getting that commitment of time, you are empowered by the app that Elysia created to do this for you, right? Like you are set up for success to gain commitment of time. And what we are clear about in any of the talks that we've done here with this, Elysia, is that getting people to communicate with you is foundational to start with from anything. You've got to build that marketable universe for yourself. And then you've got to find a way to add enough value to gain commitment of time. And what you always say, Elysia, and you can close it out today on it, is that special button. So I'll let you close this out with
Look
that.
what I got. That's so funny that you brought that up. Easy button. Wait, I don't know if you can see it with the Zoom. All right.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, the app's definitely the easy button. It's just, I'm so excited to have the opportunity to share it with loan officers and branch managers, because it's really taken like all the thought. I mean, obviously everybody can think on their own, but if you just want to get in and work on your business, boom, 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 it's all there. It's all there. So it's such a time saver.
You know what, and we probably talked, and I don't mean to be too redundant on some stuff, because I think we talked about the power of questions recently, but part of it in kind of having that authentic value. When I have one of those surveys that are prospecting surveys that we maybe get a realtor to fill out, and we can learn, gather intel, what's important to them. Like imagine if I call Elysia back, and the difference between me suggesting to her that, hey, Elysia, you're looking for a loan officer to work with that works hard and is going to take care of your clients, right? How different is that than me calling Elysia, and she's the realtor, and I say to her, Elysia, according to the survey, you said what's important to you is having it's the same exact words, right? But now I'm basically recapping back to her, which she's already said in her
Context.
and now she feels like she's being heard more, right? And when she feels like she's being heard more, I get more influence over that relationship without her even realizing it, because she thinks that I understand. And I do, because I've taken the time to get that discovery work done and gather that intel. But that's just, as we talk about gaining the commitment of time, that's why we ask you to get those surveys filled out first. You got to introduce some value to even get them fill out the survey, and we've taken care of that for you. But man, when you want to nail those meetings and get those appointments, when I can call Elysia back and say, here's what you told me, right? In addition to whatever research that I've done on you, you've also told this to me directly. I'm like, yep, we should meet. This person definitely can add some more value to me over time. So that's all I had for today, Elysia. I'll leave it up to you with any last words there before we wrap up.
Thanks, Rocco. Thanks for the knowledge as always. And I'm so excited. I mean, it's March Madness. We are in spring home buying season. And if you're not crushing it now, it takes this much effort to be above average. I've found that all my career, and I always want to be way above average, but it really takes a small amount of effort. And the app is the easy button for that. And if you use the app, great. And if you don't, and you just want to work harder, I'm always about working smarter instead of harder. But whatever you're doing out there right now, make sure you're paying attention, because there's a huge shift happening in the market right now. And the attrition in our industry originally was expected to be 22% this year. The current projections are 33% of mortgage loan officers will exit the business, and 33% of realtors. So the ones that are working smarter instead of harder, not only will be still standing, but I firmly believe, having been through the crash, the recession, all that the people who work hard and lead now will dominate for the next few years. So it's super important to pay attention to what you're doing.
So, and some of these, there's only so much free information that you can find out there on social media from Elysia. The other thing that we really don't talk, and I'll just give a shameless plug to your app here real quick, Elysia, is that not only do you have the ability to have all your prospecting sequences and all these serves and all these other cool tools that set you up for success to be the go-to mortgage person for anybody that you reach out to, either from customers or referral relationships. But inside that very same app, you will see more videos and more training content like this that are specifically geared for you to be able to level up, whether it be through sales. I've even seen some recent little blog posts that you've turned into PDF documents about goal setting and everything else that basically is just going to allow Elysia to be your whisperer, your mortgage coach whisperer from inside the app. So it's a communication device for you to do your forward customer facing prospecting. It's already pre-baked for you, everything that you need there to press the easy button. But at the same time, through some of the push notifications and video courses that are in there, Elysia's talking to you on a daily basis and right there with you to be able to make it go even faster for you and keep leveling up your game. So it's good stuff. If you haven't downloaded the app yet, I'm sure where you're watching this, that there's probably a link or some kind of offer there for you to take a trial and get the experience of things there, and you can see for yourself the magic that we're talking about. So good stuff, Elysia. Thanks as always. We'll be back again soon with another video recording.
Thanks, Rocco. Cheers, everybody.